Good afternoon, Colorado and the Rocky Mountain Mile High region, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And instead of this canned rock music, I think it said, is it Peaches and Herb, right? That does the song Mace? Reunited and it feels so good. Reunited because Andrew Mason is back from vacation and working through the technical difficulties. But yes, I think it is Peaches and Herb. And we are here to talk about the Denver Broncos. We are here to really discuss what's going on with this team. Hi, Mace. How are you?
All right. Are we live?
Yes, we are live. We are live and we are going. We're going, man. We're jumping right in. And
I didn't see you before, and I thought, and I didn't realize we were live.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, we are good, baby. And I thought, is it Peaches and Herb that did the Reunited and it feels so good, right?
Yes.
I missed you, man. I hope you had a good vacation.
I did. It's good to be back, but it was it was nice to it was nice to get away. And when you think about it, I got away on a week where it turned out not a heck of a lot happened.
Exactly.
There was a lot of speculation and a lot of chatter, but very little of substance that actually took place, which is the perfect time to take a vacation because I do think that things are about to heat up this week, and they kind of have to heat up because in 7 days, the whole NFL world is going to be in Indianapolis for the scouting combine.
Yeah, scouting combine's coming up. So Rex Ryan, I guess. What's your feel on the defense coordinator position? And can we start with this, Mace? And I said it. I think I said it on Twitter, and I wrote about it in my High Monday. I get the right guy. I don't care if it's taking a little bit longer. People are losing their mind. Yes, it would be nice to have stuff to talk about. We got enough to talk about. Mm-hmm. Find the right guy, and if that's Rex Ryan, so be it. If it's Vance Joseph, so be it. If it's Chris Richard, so be it. Take your time, get the right man. I think it's too much hot take to be like, they don't know what they're doing. That's why it's taking so long. Please give it a rest.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I'm not sure that the speculation about expanding the pool of candidates is accurate, but I mean, there's a guy who's interviewing in Philadelphia that I think should have been on the list and should be on the Broncos list, and that's Jim Leonard, the former defensive coordinator, interim head coach at Wisconsin, who, of course, is also a former Bronco, and cut his teeth defensively playing for Rex Ryan. And there's a lot of Rex Ryan kind of in what he does. And honestly, with all respect to Rex Ryan, you're talking about somebody who hasn't coached in the last 6 seasons, has a very comfortable job in broadcasting at ESPN. I'm more interested in finding the next Rex Ryan than actually getting Rex Ryan. And so that's why I look at Richard and I look at Desai from Seattle, who worked under Fangio, and even somebody like Jim Leonard, who appears to be on the Eagles' radar. And the scuttlebutt around here in Wisconsin is that he flat out turned down the chance to interview with the Packers for their job, that he just didn't want that one, that he's being very choosy, as he can be, at making this transition from college head coach to the NFL, and successful at that. I mean, Wisconsin, the number one defense in college football back in 2021, and what he does is probably going to translate to the next level. So, you know, I think I'd rather get somebody who's young and on the rise. You have the veteran presence as head coach in Sean Payton. You don't have to have somebody else there with experience. I mean, this is not, you can have the two young coordinators around Sean Payton on offense and defense. It's okay. It can work. This isn't like Philadelphia or Arizona, pardon me, because Jonathan Gannon came from Philadelphia, but Gannon comes in and he's got an incredibly young staff. And I think it's fair for Cardinals fans to be a little bit concerned about that. That's not the case here with the Broncos.
No, the Broncos don't need to worry about that. And the way you can tell the really good teams is they get their staffs plucked over after the season is done. And with Rex Ryan, my main concern, and I've said it before on the show, so I'll keep it brief, but I'll reintroduce it for you, Mace. Like, for me, I don't need Rex Ryan, the personality. I don't need Rex Ryan, the media darling, the fan favorite. I need Rex Ryan, the worker. And all I know is the people that work for the Bills that I talked to said Sean McDermott was like a breath of fresh air and a 180. Now, that's as a head coach, and as a coordinator, Rex Ryan is more than proven. And as a head coach, he's had some success. But I can't get out of my head. My Buffalo people that work for the team said the dude had banker's hours. And when Sean McDermott came in and was like immediately sleeping at the facility and stuff, they were like, oh my God, this is great. So like, I don't want lazy Rex or personality Rex. I don't need that. I need good coach grinder that'll match that work ethic, working smarter, like Sean Payton.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing. How much does Rex Ryan really want this? Right.
Right.
That's the huge question here that I think has to be answered. And I don't put much stock in the fact that the Broncos, Sean Payton interviewed him on Saturday and didn't offer him a job, and that he's not the coordinator right now. I don't put much in that. I think they are doing due diligence. Like I said this morning on the Players Club, Sean Payton had a plan A. His plan A was Vic Fangio, and we got the indication of that a couple months ago from Adam Schefter's report. And then when you got past plan A, then it became a contingency plan. So I think he had a plan. It got blown up a bit. And now you're trying to kind of reset and figure out, okay, what do you want? And the other thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks is Sean Payton's dove more into what this roster is. He's dove into the players on hand. And because of that, I think he's evolving and developing a better sense of what he wants tactically from this defense and what type of coach he's going to want to fit in with that. And so that's why one of the reasons why I think it's taking as long as it is. I'm not concerned. Look, it's not like the Broncos are going to play on Sunday. And I would like to have a coordinator by the combine, in part because you're going to be sitting down with players that you might be drafting and trying to figure out and trying to get to know them and start that process. You're going to want to put them at the whiteboard, yada, 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 and figure out what their football acumen is. That's the type of thing where you say, okay, we want some coaches in place for that. But I don't get the hand wringing of, oh my gosh, it's February 21st and the Broncos don't have a coordinator. If it's February 28th and the Broncos don't have a coordinator, I think we're having a different conversation. But right now we're not at that point yet.
Right. And we still have the rest of the week to go. It was a holiday yesterday. That's why we were off. And well, now we're back. And now the Broncos are doing their due diligence and they'll find the right man, whoever it is. I saw someone on Twitter suggest Wade Phillips, who's having great success getting Paxton Lynch benched in the XFL. So it's like, yeah, I mean, hey, I'm open to all comers as long as you're good. We all know that Papa Wade is good.
Well,
son of bum.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're thinking about the XFL, I don't think Sean Payton is going to reunite with Greg Williams, but Greg Williams had a pretty good night on Sunday night coordinating for the DC Defenders.
Yeah,
as they forced the fumble from Ben DiNucci there at the goal line to preserve a win. By the way, how much XFL did you watch this weekend, Cecil?
A lot, probably more than I want to admit. Not necessarily. I like going back over the names. I'm buddies with Cody Latimer, and I think Cody's story would have been much different. Peyton Manning broke him, and Cody'd probably tell you that as much. So, just like keeping up with the different people or former Broncos, so maybe checking in. But I know for me, it was much more entertaining than the NBA All-Star game and All-Star weekend.
You know what? The funny thing is we were doing a test run on Coffee Break because we've got some new software that we're using to produce our shows here and figuring out, okay, how do we incorporate a guest from offsite? And so we were doing a test run. The funny thing about the test run with myself, Rachel Vigil, DMAC, and James Marilat is we were talking about like all-star games and formats and what you'd rather be doing. And it was as animated as a discussion on air would be. And I actually did put forth a thing that, yeah, I was, all-star game, NBA all-star game, I don't care. I had a choice of what to watch, and I was watching the XFL. First, I was watching the afternoon game with San Antonio and St. Louis. And by the way, we'll get in. I'm sure we're gonna have a discussion here about some of the rules tweaks. Remember, the NFL has a loose affiliation with the XFL
that may become stronger, and they stole the Sky Cam from them last time around,
right? But the key thing on this is there are a couple of key aspects to it. Number one, they've promoted minority representation on the coaching staffs and developing minority coaches. Number two is they're going to use the XFL to test out rules ideas. And so we get to the end of that St. Louis San Antonio game, and we see the 3-point conversion from the 10, and we see the 4th and 15 onside kick substitute there, and St. Louis converts it and drives downfield for the game-winning score. And here you had an end game that was more exciting because of what went on. And don't think for a second that the NFL powers that be, that the competition committee people weren't watching that. They were taking note of that. And so that's why, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why the XFL is going to be worth watching. Among them is I'm certain there will be at least 1 or 2 XFL players that are on at least the Broncos camp roster.
Right. Right.
You know, they will add guys from the XFL. I have no doubt about that. So it's worth paying attention to.
It's worth paying attention to if you're a football fan. There's not a whole lot going on yet. NBA doesn't really get going until the playoffs, and even then, it doesn't really get going, especially in the first round. But like for me, Mace, I really enjoyed the live play-by-play of the replay.
Yeah.
Having everybody mic'd up, like just that transparency with this whole and I think it's laughable. And God bless Aaron Foster for multiple reasons. Aaron's always been a beat of a different drummer type guy, which I encourage, by the way. Yes. We don't need the zombies, the robots that are yes sir, no sir, right away sir, whatever you say sir. You need someone that's a free thinker, someone that can think on their own, that's a critical thinker, and that is Aaron Foster. Aaron Foster is a great man. He was kidding, everybody, when you talk about the script, or at least he was talking about the practice script. So now that you have like NFL rigged trending and all this, the way you nip it in the bud is just show everything. The XFL just showed everything, and this is what they're talking about. This is what they're doing. I thought it was great for the fans to see the insight, and the debate's going to rage on. We're going to always talk about it. Bradbury himself came out and said he held on Juju, you know, and yes, do you call it at that time? That's the question. But like being transparent with their rules and their replays, I think could really benefit the NFL.
Yeah, it's funny to go back to the holding there for a moment. Did he hold? Yes. Was that type of hold being called throughout the game? No, it wasn't. That's the thing. Nope. It's the inconsistent adjudication over the course of the game. And because here's the thing, what happens in any football game from college on up, is players adjust to how the game is being called. If it's being called tightly, they adjust, and you'll see less contact. If they're letting things go, you're going to see more contact. I don't think Bradbury has the grab there if the game is being called ridiculously tight. Right. But it was pretty laissez-faire for most of the game. And based on the way that game had gone and the way it was called, that should not have been a holding. That was the problem that I had with it. It was like with a minute and a half to go, all of a sudden, we're just going to call something differently than we called it the entire game.
That should be the opposite of anything. We see it in the NBA all the time. Like it'll be a little whistle happy, and then towards the end, they just kind of let you play. Yeah. And we've seen that in Super Bowls too, where like, okay, something early is a penalty, and later on they're going to let you play. And it was the opposite, and it was wrong.
It was a shame because it ruined what should have been an all-time ending. Mm-hmm. Look like we might be talking overtime, we might be talking last second score. It seemed like we were headed toward an ending for the ages. And instead, we got an ending that was pretty anticlimactic. I think it was a good game, an entertaining game, but it fell short of the class of being a classic, and it fell short of that because of that call. Yep. And that's the shame, is what we were denied 9 days ago. But, you know, the page turns. The page turns pretty quickly in the NFL because, you know, here we are. I mean, we're here we are talking about the combine and another league and rules and rules tweaks. And I mean, in a few weeks, I'm going to be sitting at a table in Phoenix at league meetings, and we're probably going to be talking about maybe some of these rules changes at least coming into play for preseason and being tested out. That's how fast this thing goes.
Right. And that's why the NFL, like last year with Buffalo, like we'll change everything. Like, wow. And I always said, God bless the Bills, but play defense at the end of the game. You want to stop somebody. We don't need to change the rules. You just need to play defense.
I get what you're saying, but still, to me, overtime should be about the entire team deciding the game. And as long as you have that, you still have it in the regular season, as long as you have a way where basically one team's offense and one team's defense may not have a role in breaking the tie, it's not a perfect overtime system. That's the thing. I'm just, I just want the whole team to decide it, not half the team.
Right.
That's my take on it.
Right. Jose, who was our guy here in the chat room, he brings up a great point. And as someone behind me, Mace, you'll notice this closet. And all my comic books fell down. But anyway, full of comic books and also videotapes, which includes World League. It includes NFL Europe. It includes the first XFL, like with He Hate Me and David Diaz and Fonte and all that kind of stuff.
The XFL.
Yeah. Vince McMahon blowing out his vocal cords. So, yes. I agree with Jose because there used to be kind of a joke behind the scenes. Like the NFL's got a free developmental league. It's called college football. And I believe personally, college football is a completely different game from the NFL. And it's one of the reasons why, again, me personally, I think you can be a great college football analyst and not understand the NFL draft. And I've seen it time and time again. That's why when big college football fans, I'm sure you get it as well on your timeline, Mace, like, I watched every game of this guy at Mizzou and he's the greatest ever. And he can't play, whatever player that is. But you can't tell college football fans that because they've watched every game and they went to the university and they still owe student loans. Like, it's just odd to me. But college football is no longer that factory for the NFL because so many positions are different. The game is different. College football in general is just different. So I agree with Jose. The XFL would be a great sort of developmental league. I think we don't see Jake Delhomme anymore. We don't see Brad Johnson anymore. We don't see Kurt Warner anymore. All of these guys got time in the World League and NFL Europe. I think that's I think corner development would be better. I think receiver development would be better. I think offensive line play would be better. There's really not much that wouldn't be better by having a real developmental league.
Because look, I mean, we're asking these guys to come in from the college ranks and contribute right away, and they're just not ready. There are very few programs that what they're doing schematically and in teaching, very few programs from the college level that translate to the NFL. I mean, why do Wisconsin and Iowa offensive linemen tend to have a better track record than most at succeeding? Because those are two of the few schools where they're teaching pro concepts, right? Why Alabama, Georgia, why do those guys usually seem to have a leg up? It's because they're running those programs in NFL style, but you don't see but so much of that. And it's funny I mentioned Wisconsin because that's one place where it's probably going out the window, with all respect to Luke Fickell coming over from Cincinnati. I think what he's going to do for Wisconsin is going to be great for that program at a college level, but I think all of a sudden you may not be looking at them being the same kind of factory and incubator for offensive line play that they've been for so long. So, and look, you've got to, I get it at the college level. You're trying to succeed there, right? That's the goal. That's the job.
That's your job.
That's it. And that's more important than being a place that develops NFL talent at specific positions. I mean, Iowa's getting offensive linemen, tight ends drafted year after year after year, and they go to the league and most of them end up doing pretty well. Doesn't seem to have done much for the program because right now it looks pretty stagnant. I mean, they want to fire their offensive coordinator, who's the son of the head coach. That's another matter entirely. But the thing is, college, those programs exist to succeed at that level. That's the goal. Their goal is not to be a farm system. And so we have these competing sets of interests that, free farm system. Hey, that's well and good, but colleges are going to try to win and they're going to try to do things that don't necessarily translate to the next level. So you need something developmental. I mean, me personally, if it were up to me, Cecil, a developmental league would look a lot like the G League in the NBA.
Yes.
Where every team has a corresponding team. If instead of having 53 guys plus practice squad, I mean, and I'd probably be playing it during the season as well, but I know that's probably not realistic. But you'd have 100 players on your roster, right? And 53 would be on the primary roster, and 47 would be playing down in the developmental league on Wednesday nights. And you'd call them up, and they'd be running your offense, and you'd be able to to retain them. You could even have like MLB style rules, like because the MLB has like the Rule 5 draft, which is of guys that okay, you've had them for your system for a long time, and you just got to let them go. You got to put them on your primary roster. You got to let them go. There are ways that you could design this, but I mean, you could do this in the off season as well. I mean, once the Super Bowl ended, the Broncos were back to a 90-player roster, right? I mean,
Right.
why not bump that up to 100 and just tell the bottom 47, or even you can play with 40. I mean, the NFL teams play with 40 for a long time. You can tell 40 guys, hey, we want to see something of you. You're gonna go be the Colorado Springs Broncos for the next 10 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I would do it a little later in the spring, but I get one of the reasons why the XFL is playing now, because there's a question of, okay, why so soon? The XFL is playing now. This is part of the loose affiliation with the NFL. They're playing now to get done before OTAs.
Right.
Because the goal, and the XFL is pretty clear. Their goal is to get guys to the NFL, to get them another shot, to let them get some good game film out there and give some second and third chances. Because some guys just take time. You point to all those quarterbacks. And there are other examples of players that just needed time that the current pro football process doesn't offer. Some guys are late bloomers. The biggest hole right now to me in the sport of pro football in this country is it doesn't have a way to develop talent.
Right. And then guys come in and they wash out and people make fun of them. And it's like, what would have happened differently with a Kyle Sloter or an AJ McCarron? I'll go back as like a Michael Bishop or a Brett Smith or a Brett Meyer. Like there's your Iowa State reference. But like, what would be different? I'm mainly focusing on quarterbacks because I mentioned Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Like we would have been robbed that story had it not been for the World League or NFL Europe, whichever one he was in. And then, of course, the Arena League. Like, give us those stories, and you get one of those guys, and you can hang your. Yes, it's going to cost money, NFL, but guess what, you fat pigs? You already have enough money. Like, you're going to be fine. Nobody's starving at the NFL owners table. If you spend a few $100 million, whatever it takes to make a G League for the NFL, I think you'll be okay.
And here's another reason why. I mean, we talk about, okay, there's a shortage of quarterbacks. There's a shortage of tackles. There's a shortage of this because we're not developing them. We're not giving the avenues to develop this talent. And look, one thing you and I both know, long term, the NFL is going to get bigger. I would expect some level of expansion within this decade, within the 2020s. And I would think that, and I would expect that by 2040, we may be looking at a 40-team league, right? And if you're going to have that many teams, and if you're going to have maybe by the end of the decade, 4 more teams that are seeking out quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks, you better have another way to develop them besides what you've got, because this current methodology, it isn't succeeding. You need that other path to find talent, late developing talent. You need to provide that opportunity. Look, someone like Paxton Lynch, okay, there's going to be some lost causes, and I think Paxton Lynch is a lost cause, okay? But, we talk about AJ
What
McCarron.
about Ben DiNucci? Ben DiNucci's a good – if he ever turned into the Tony Romo version, he was with the Cowboys, like I wouldn't be surprised. Cooper Rush, right? I'm stuck on Cowboys backups. Where are these guys? Why aren't they playing? DiNucci is, and I think it's good.
And who's to say some backups that we wouldn't find out more about them because you got them out there on the field and got them playing? I mean, let's just look at the Broncos roster, right? I think I think with Brett Rippon, maybe he would have been better prepared if he'd been able to go to a developmental league and play. You've got Jarrett Garantano. This is the second time I've heard the name Garantano today, right? Garrett Garantano is a perfect candidate to go over to a developmental league and play, because here's somebody, he's got some raw skills. Was a transfer in college, didn't pan out, but with time, who knows? But if you've got a developmental league, you're taking shots and you're bringing guys up. I mean, Mike mentions Doug Peterson being a world league guy. This is, to me, it's the biggest hole in the NFL process right now. And no, OTAs and training camp, and a couple of preseason games, that's not enough to find out. You need a season, you need some good film, you need to get guys working together, building their chemistry. I mean, Jay says the Aurora Broncos. Hey, look, my grand idea, Cease, is that that in a Walmart family move, that the Colorado Rapids and Dick's Sporting Goods Park gets sold by Kroenke, who their operation doesn't really care much about the Rapids, to the Walton Penner Group. And so then all of a sudden you go play over at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, and then that's your place where the B Broncos, the developmental Broncos, or an XFL Broncos or whatever go play. Heck, I put it out there on over the weekend. I'd love to see Denver have an XFL team.
Yeah.
I did put Tim Tebow out there just to get butts in the seats, but you know what? That would be the initial thing. But then you'd have some young guy that you're putting out there. Yeah, this is I love watching this kind of football, and I miss the World League because I would sit there. I remember like when I would sit there and I would write my reports every week on the Broncos players that were allocated over there. Nate Jackson. Eric Pierce became a really good offensive lineman in the NFL. Right. I believe he was with the Cologne Centurions at one point.
Our guy Nick Ferguson was over there.
He was.
There's a lot of Broncos that have come through there, and a lot of pros that you need. You can first pay attention to them over there. So I just think it's important. It's important for the health of this league, especially upon expansion, or else you're going to have haves and have-nots. And I don't think there's any rules adjustments you can do that. If your talent's not getting developed, you will have a bad product for half the league or whatever. And one thing that's made the NFL the juggernaut is most teams are competitive, at least at some points of the season.
Yeah, it's funny. We kind of point back to around the turn of the century, and that was a really interesting time. And it was a time with a lot of volatility. And one of the reasons why there was a lot of volatility in a good way is because you had a back road of developing quarterbacks that doesn't exist right now. I mean, John Fox might never have become a Broncos head coach eventually if he hadn't had Jake Delhomme that they signed from New Orleans, who'd been in the World League before, and he took the long road there, and Jake Delhomme ends up guiding the Panthers to a Super Bowl. You could argue he came within a bad John Casey kickoff of potentially beating Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. And that day, Jake Delhomme was Tom Brady's equal. Right? I mean, Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, had some other good seasons with Minnesota especially. And then, of course, Kurt Warner's kind of the alpha of that. Trust me, gentle viewers, if you had a true developmental league, you would see more players like this. And just think of what this would have saved the Broncos, because I'll just give you, I'll throw an example out there. What if Trevor Siemian had a chance to develop more before he got a chance to go out there? What if Brock Osweiler had been able to put a couple of developmental seasons in his back pocket? Right.
What if Chad Kelly would have been able to stay on the straight and narrow? We both saw Kelly out, and he was running scripts by himself after practice. Not the script of the fixed league, but no, he was out there by himself.
Yeah.
Running stuff by himself. Chad Kelly has talent. He just had demons as well, hopefully over him now.
Yeah, and it's a shame because you could see it, and we got the glimpses. And if he had not had those demons, we might have been talking about Chad Kelly playing the final 2 or 3 weeks of that
Remember,
season.
I asked Vance Joseph that week, then it was the day before the Halloween thing, and I said, do you trust Chad Kelly? And that was like a big quote floating around, because I asked Vance Joseph about trusting. He's like, we completely trust Chad Kelly. That night, he gets beaten up by a vacuum cleaner. And I'm just glad, we make fun of it. He's dressed up like Woody. I'm just glad he wasn't shot. You're going into someone's house unannounced like that. A lot of bad things could happen because you're, inebriated or whatever. So, look, we'd have a better product. What if you would have been able to develop Trevor without him getting whiplash from getting beat up? Because Trevor, that's what happened to Trevor. What if you would have been able to play Paxton and been like, ooh, it's not real good.
You would have found out.
The next year you could have drafted somebody. You know what I mean? You could have been in play for Mahomes, whatever.
You would have found out. You would have found out about him. I mean, imagine this, and one of the ways I would do it, a developmental league, is I would tell the NFL, I'd say, okay, if a player plays in the developmental league, they get a year of credit toward their pension, right? A year of service. Yeah. So that's how I would that's one of the ways you'd sell it to the PA. And of course, you create more jobs as well, because one of the things that you'd like to do is, yes, you draft Paxton Lynching, you get him playing in the developmental league right away, right that instant, right? It's like in baseball where you draft a guy and you're instantly dropping him at at single A or the rookie league or whatever. You're starting the process of figuring out if this player has the goods, right? We see it in hockey some now. Hockey's a little different because you'll draft players with college eligibility still left, but I mean, like, look at how quickly Cale Makar kind of got on the ice, right? But most guys, you kind of can get the developmental process going. There's a better way, and Bronco and VA makes a great point. More development for coaches, and that's why I think the XFL, what they're doing, is interesting, because we're seeing guys like Hines Ward and Terrell Buckley, former Bronco, by the way, that are getting chances to run shows.
Yep.
And if when I'm interviewing, if I'm an ownership interviewing for a head coach, I'm going to take note of that coach who's run a shop, and if they do that very well, then that has a decent chance of translating. Yes, you're making a huge level jump, but they've dealt with having to be the person deciding everything. They've dealt with the crises of, oh, these guys, they went out and partied and they, missed curfew or whatever the night before. They missed practice. They've made a lot of these big decisions that you already have to make in terms of running a team. And so this is going to be very helpful. And I've every time there's a chance for a developmental league to pop up, I root like hell for it to succeed, because we desperately need this in our sport.
And also, the biggest thing about the coaches is it would help break up the good old boy network that is still prevalent in the coaching circles. In some front offices, that is changing, but in coaching circles, there's a good old boy network that would be broken up if you had coaches developing. Either way, right. Mace, we're done for today. I'm sure this week will bring us plenty to talk about, though. So we're not done for now. We got more.
Plenty more to go. By the way, to make one more Broncos thing, talk about coaches developing. And we see Tony Carter calling the defensive plays this weekend, and I have to say, and this is just shows how people can grow. I'll just say that I did not see defensive coordinator as part of Tony Carter's future when he was in Denver.
No.
But we all grow. We all learn. Good for him. Hope he succeeds. And again, breaks up that good old boy network that needs to be broken up.
Yeah. I still remember when I confused John Fox. Remember when we'd sit next to Foxy in the presser? Like that, yes. What was that, 1 year? And he had to miss
fireside chat. Yep.
Yes, we had the fireside chat with Foxy, and I was like, hey, Tony Carter loves to gamble. And I think he thought I meant like gamble. And yes. I just meant like gamble on the field. And I was like, how do you get over that? And he's just like, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, I'm Foxy. I'm not Fox. Come on. Anyway. I missed those fireside chats.
He took you literally. That was the thing.
I know. Anyway, what the hell is Ant-Man? I'll never forget that John Fox conversation. Got a ton of conversations coming up. It is Orange and Blue today. He is Andrew Mason. I am Cecil Lammey. We are OBT. It's BFD. We appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you're appreciated. Stay tuned and stay frosty.